Welcome to the Alignment Show, featuring conversations with folks who have taken steps to identify their highest values and align their lives around them. Time on this earth is not unlimited, and you may be seeking to make sure you spend your time on things that matter to you. These conversations will encourage you and support you in doing so. Now, let's meet this week's guest on the Alignment Show. And a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Thanks for being back with us again here on the Alignment Show. My name is Don King. I am your host, and I always forget to say date and episode. I'm going to start trying to do that. We are broadcasting this on November the 15th, 2023. This is episode number 37. And as we get started here, before I introduce our guest, I want to remind you that The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why is out in publication. I'll put a QR code up here, but for those of you who are listening audio only, you can find out more about it at donking.com. That's DONNKING.com/3YO, the number 3YO. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but on the other hand, it may be that you're interested in whether you would be interested. And so sort of like cheese sampling at Kroger, you try it out, then we've got a free short story for you. I've got a QR code for that up here as well. And I will put a, what do you call it? Ticker. Yeah, that's what they call it down there at the bottom, donking.com/brewing. No, it's not that kind of brewing. It has to do with coffee, but you can check out the type of writing that you would get in The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why. That's enough about our sponsor at this point. I would like to also remind people that coming up on December 1st, we are switching from Wednesdays to Fridays for our broadcast. So that week, instead of broadcasting on Wednesday, we will broadcast on Friday. Let me get that QR code off here. Our guest is listening here. We were talking about radio, and this is like running a starship sometimes here, Terry. So there we go. All righty. So it is my privilege at this point to introduce our guest to you. I've known Terry for a few years now, and we've actually met in person a few times, which is kind of unusual these days. Terry has made a great career training people in effective sales. I'm going to say he's been featured in Forbes and Automotive News. He's spoken to audiences coast to coast at TEDx and national conventions. But he's kind of made a little bit of a switch. Now, he says he is an author, speaker, and entrepreneur, and he's all of that. But with the release of his latest book, Here Come the Nothing Heads, he's a poet philosopher, too. And he makes a pretty mean chocolate cobbler. We can't do that virtually, I don't think. But we're going to find out what was involved in all of that shift. And Terry will tell us more about what he's up to. But let's just get him on stage. Terry, welcome to the Alignment Show. Thanks for being here.
How you doing, Don? Phaser's set to stun, baby. Phaser's set to stun.
Oh, just glad to have you here this week. I'm always interested in authors and people who have written books, because everybody talks about writing one, but to be able to actually accomplish that, I mean, not too many people do that. And from what I've seen of your book, and I've read the book, it is a switch from the stuff that you've been doing for the last, 20, 30 years?
It is definitely different. I don't know if it's switched so much as a continuation. Maybe it's just the natural, inevitable result of my 59 years on God's green earth. So
there you go. Because the approach that you have taken in teaching people about effective sales really does fit in with what I can see of the poet philosophy thing here. It's not about taking advantage of people, but working with people, serving people. Let's get a little bit of background in there so that people can see where you have brought your life into alignment with your values, which is what we're all about here on the Alignment Show. I almost pulled up your other website where you have done the sales training, and specifically you have worked with people in the automotive industry for years.
That's right.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I've been working in the automotive industry for I've done nothing but work in the automotive industry pretty much for the last 30 some odd years. But before that, I was in radio advertising, which was only half the automotive industry. Half the spots on Jet 107 back in the day were car dealer spots. So I've been slinging car spots for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah, and just to put context in here, I know this is not news to you. If we talk about stereotypes, one of the stereotypes that's out there in our culture is the stereotype of the car salesman who is seeking to take advantage of somebody, because we know that very few people ever are repeat customers, even of the same dealership.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's the same dealership, they seldom deal with the same salesperson. And so there's a stereotype about how I can't remember who it was that said it, but I heard somebody say, you walk on the lot and they approach you with that smile on their face, but not in their eyes. And you get the feeling that you got my money in your wallet and I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And that's not what you do. So let's put a little context there as we lead into where you are now.
So yeah, I mean that is the stereotype of car salesmen, and there are car salesmen like that. But I'll be honest with you, there are salespeople. There are a lot of car salespeople like that, because you look at it from the other perspective. The car salesman working out there, the salesperson on the lot, every customer who comes in is doing the same thing. They're in for the short term game. They're there to get the biggest discount. They're most of the time they're just as scummy as the car salesperson. So it is a bilateral situation, because each of those two human beings have failed to recognize the other as a human being. They're not treating each other with kindness. They're there to get what they want at whatever cost. And I'm trying to break that cycle. I tried to break that cycle with training car salesperson to develop the human relationship first. And I'd like the car buyers to develop the human relationship first, to be open to developing that relationship and building a long-term relationship, when most of them are just looking to save a quick buck.
Mm-hmm. And I can see where, with your mission, that you have more leverage in helping the salespeople to understand this than in changing all of society.
Right.
And it happens that it's also a lucrative way to do business. I mean, when you build relationships, it's less stressful for the salesperson, and in the long run, at least, and I would say in the short run, it's more lucrative. Would you agree with that?
100% is more lucrative. I spent the last 10 years probably interviewing the top salespeople from around the automotive industry, people who sell 10, 20, 30 times the national average of what the average salesperson is selling. And they're doing that not because they're out hustling, not because they're out grabbing everyone that walks on the lot selling cars. They're doing that because they've integrated themselves into communities and become integral part of that communities, so that when people walk on the lot, they're not looking for a deal. They're looking for their friend in the car business. And the deals go a lot quicker. You make a lot more money. You get a lot more 5-star reviews. Everybody's happier if they take the chance to acknowledge each other's humanity right there at the get-go.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find that initially, maybe as you're training people like that, they fear that if they do this, because the person on the other side of the table is seeking, to maximize the money or whatever, do they fear they will be taken advantage of?
100%. I go in and I train salespeople. The first thing I tell them is, you need to pick up your phone, look at your phone, see who your friends are on Facebook, see who you've got a text from lately, see who the people who are in your life, and make sure every individual in your life, make sure they know what you're doing for a living. And a lot of them will then raise their hand and go, listen, if my brother-in-law knows I'm selling cars, he's going to come down here. He's going to want a good deal. If anything goes wrong, I'm going to seal about it at Thanksgiving. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to sit here at the lot. I'm going to smoke cigarettes, and I'm going to jump on whoever walks in the door while I'm drinking coffee, and I'm going to squeeze every dime I can out of them, because I don't want to deal with this stuff when I'm off. No. I'm here to sell cars for 8 hours, 12 hours a day, and I don't want the problems that come with people. And they can't see past that initial transactional attitude that who's going to get the most out of who. They look at every situation as a win-lose. Somebody's a winner, somebody's a loser, and I'm going to be the winner. And it's a big, that's the biggest hurdle. That is, a matter of fact, I wrote the book How to Sell More Cars, and it's a tiny little book. It's made for any individual sitting on a lot to pick up and read it while they're sitting there. But the main thing is I just want them to get the idea to treat everyone in their life as a potential customer, and treat them that way, and see what long-term benefits come. But that initial hurdle it's uphill battle. You are correct.
Yeah, yeah. I can see all the aspects of that. Just the getting started. Now it happens. Several of the folks who have been part of this podcast, we're in a community with Bob Berg, and I know you probably recognize the name.
I've interviewed Bob Berg on my podcast. Bob is good people.
Yeah, I figured you had. I thought you had, but I couldn't remember. So I mean, that's right along that philosophy, and as Zig Ziglar used to say, you can get everything that you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want, and the help aspect, genuine help. I can see where this feeds into what you're doing now with your current efforts. Now, before we start talking about specifics with that, I like to go back and kind of probe origin stories, not just how did you get started in sales to begin with, but what led you to realize that the hustle, take advantage of them approach to sales was not the way to go? Was there something that opened your eyes up to that?
Well, like I said, I think everything to me is a culmination of a long-term process. I've been doing this marketing, sales, advertising, promotions, publishing, all the things that I'm involved in. I've been involved in them for a long time, and I'm an old man, Don. So it's I ain't new. And one of I think the thing that really, I mean, there's lots of things. I got involved with Dale Carnegie a long time ago. I took the Dale Carnegie class when I was fresh out of college. I was selling radio advertising, and we didn't have a training budget, but they had a sales trade budget. And I ended up making a trade with the local Dale Carnegie people to go through the Dale Carnegie class. And I loved everything about that. It just really resonated with me that this is the way you want to be involved in people's lives. And so I've tried to do that all along in my career as I went from marketing into training, into publishing. So I've tried to keep that Dale Carnegie ideology about winning friends and influencing people in that. And it really got hit home after I started my podcast. It was originally called the Get You Some Radio Show. And I interviewed, again, top sales performers, interviewed a lot of authors, interviewed a lot of speakers, interviewed people like Bob Berg. And I kept, eventually if you hit a dog in the head enough times, they'll learn to get their nose out of whatever it is you're trying to keep them out of. And I'm not be the brightest bulb on the tree, but everyone I kept interviewing, they kept telling me these stories about how being kind and how treating people with humanity and actually being a human being first helped further their career over and over and over and over again. I was going to at one point write a book called the Get You Some Manifesto exactly on that, because so many people told me that this was how they became to the point in their career that they were in, that I just finally realized, well, maybe everybody's just telling me the truth.
Yeah. How long did it take you to, like, how far were you into your sales career before the penny dropped?
I was in a sales career for decades before I ever got into the training career. So, but I took that Dale Carnegie course. I was an accidental salesperson. I was a disc jockey, and I didn't have the pipes for it, and I didn't have the rock star good looks to be on TV, and I didn't have the voice to be on radio. So I was in a quandary. I went into selling advertising, and when I went into selling advertising, most of my clients were car dealers. But I took that Dale Carnegie class a year into my sales training, and I mean, pretty much right off the bat, I learned that developing the relationships was the way to sales. And I had a great sales manager that first year out of college. My first year out of college, I was selling radio in Tupelo, Mississippi. I moved from Cookeville, Tennessee, where I was going to school at Tennessee Tech. I moved 200 miles away to Tupelo, Mississippi, 200 miles away from any human being I'd ever known. And it was definitely a good old boy network. And I had a sales manager who really taught me a couple of things. One, he taught me that I had two ears and one mouth, and I needed to use them in exactly that order. And two, he was real big on the Rotary Club and the community service and getting involved and building the connections that way. But he told me early on, he said, you have to go in, you have to do it for the right reason. If you go in looking to build relationships, to create sales, that's not building relationships, that's building a customer base, that's marketing. People are going to smell that. That's inauthentic, to use a word that people like to use these days. That's an inauthentic reason for doing that. People can smell it from a mile away when you're doing that. But if you go in and you're looking to build relationships and find a way to help those people, then everything will fall into place.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you've mentioned publishing a few times. I want to go ahead and show. We're going to talk about. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the current effort. You have started something called the Coalition for Human Kindness. Am I saying that right?
You are correct. The Coalition for Human Kindness.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit about that. What's the background on that? Why did you start emphasizing that as opposed to maybe the training that you do or that sort of thing?
Well, the Coalition for Human Kindness is actually my umbrella organization. I'm bringing everything under that umbrella. That is my official title is the all around good dude at the Coalition for Human Kindness. And I'll tell you exactly. This is one of those lightning strike moments, deer in the headlight. I had the Coalition for Human Kindness came about specifically in one instant. About 10 years ago, when I first started, I decided I was going to write a book. And I sat down. We talked about people deciding to write a book. I decided to write a book, and I sat down and I did it. Well, actually, that's not true. I'll go back to that. But I wrote a book and then decided I was going to write a book. I wrote it a little bit at a time and then turned it into a book. But in that process of writing my very first book called Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us, I had gone through this exercise that I read about in some self-help magazine or somewhere that about defining your why, finding the authentic you, finding what you want to do, creating your mission statement. So I had sat down and created this 17-point mission statement about who I want it to be and how I want it to conduct my life. Now I'll go ahead and tell you, this is about 10 years old. I'll tell you the strategy. Maybe somebody wants to do this because it was a fairly effective strategy. I think I got it from a guy named the name of James Altucher, if I'm saying his name correctly.
Yeah.
But he said, sit down with a piece of paper and write a mission statement, and then write another one, and keep writing stream of consciousness until you think you found the exact words that fit you, just completely unconsciously. And I did that. And here's what I came up with. I live each moment powerfully, simply, joyfully, and gratefully, creating health, happiness, and prosperity, connecting the infinite within us all. That's who I want it to be. That's how I want it to conduct my life. And I did that for about 8 or 9 years. So about 2 years ago, when it dawned on me that doesn't say anything. That doesn't, when it comes to a decision point, that doesn't help me make the decision about how to live my life. That doesn't get me to the next step. You know, I can be powerful and simple and grateful, but what does that mean? Yeah. How do I put that into action? And on my podcast, in my books, I always have action steps. What are you going to do? What's the next step? Because talking about it don't feed the bulldog. Mm-hmm. Only doing stuff gets stuff done. And so if all this grandiose mission statement idea I had wasn't going to help me solve my problems, what did it need to be? And through osmosis or whatever, I decided that my personal mission statement is to be kind. In every decision, in every interaction, everywhere I go, every choice I make, if I think if that's my filter, be kind. How do I be more kind to myself, to others, and to the world around me? If I use that as my guide, that's good. That's helpful. That's actually helpful. So at one point, I was looking at my businesses, and I have training and marketing and publishing, and I kind of got my fingers in a lot of different pies, and I never really knew what to call them. I hit upon the idea of calling this the Coalition for Human Kindness. And I'm the head of the Coalition for Human Kindness, and we've got all of these things, and it's just my umbrella organization. And I put it on Facebook. Honestly, I put it on LinkedIn. I put it on LinkedIn as one of my as my experiences 2 years ago, and never really did anything with it. It's there. It's honest. It's honestly just in LinkedIn to give me a way to list everything that I do. And when I came out with the new book just a couple of months ago, the Here Come the Nothing Heads, that's when the Coalition for Human Kindness left off the page of a LinkedIn and made it out into the real world as the name of my publishing company.
Okay, okay, it makes a lot of sense. So for folks who are listening, as opposed to seeing what we've been sharing on the screen, and I've got it on the screen again for the folks who can see it. Uh, we're looking at it's bekindclub.org. Did I say
Be,
that right?
BeKindClub.org.
Okay, and I've got a little ticker going down here also for folks who can see it. But again, for the audio listeners, Be Kind Club, all one word, no hyphens, no spaces, bekindclub.org. And that will lead you to this umbrella organization, the Coalition for Human Kindness. We also mentioned Terry's book. And so let's share that tab again. Got it up on Amazon. It's called Here Come the Nothing Heads. And it's a poem, a book length poem, but it's also philosophy. We didn't talk about this beforehand, Terry. I meant to check this with you, and if I'm putting you on the spot, I hope not. But would you want to read a little segment of it or anything like that? I don't know if you've got it.
Well, let me see. I could if you wanted me to.
Yeah, yeah.
Haven't done that before. I haven't been a poet very long, Don, so I don't really know the protocol for being a poet.
Well,
did you have a part that jumped out at you when you read it? What would you like to hear?
and I don't have it in front of me right now. So if there is a part, let's just a page or so, just to give people a feel for it.
Well, let me tell you. So the book's called "Here Come the Nothing Heads," and it is an epic poem for children of all ages, is what I like to call it. I told my family, I said, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write a children's book. And they all, my wife and my daughters are all teachers, and they looked at me like I'd lost my ever loving mind, which is a distinct possibility. I don't want to rule that out by any stretch of the imagination. But I got in my head of writing a children's book, but it's not really a children's book. It's written in the style of a children's book. It's written in a Dr. Seussical style. It's kind of a rhyming thing because you and I have talked about. I'm a writer. I've been writing radio copy since I was 19 years old, and so I like writing really short phrases. So this gave me an opportunity to write the ideas that I wanted to get across in short, succinct phrases instead of writing 20 chapters of better self-help. Better self-help for the rest of us has a lot of the ideas that's in this book, but they're written with scientific backing and interviews that I'd done and people telling their stories. It's more of a general purpose book. This expresses the same ideas in poem form, and just because it gave me a chance to put the words together in nice, sweet phrases. So I'm going to read you a couple pages here from Here Come the Nothing Heads. It ain't easy being you, said Nadalada. You've got a lot going on in there. Remembering what you're mad about from that one time somewhere. Who said what and what was said and what you're going to do the next time you see them out? Sneezy replied, "That's you." Sneezing, sniffling, and snuffling, Nadalada said to Sneezy, "Keeping track of your predicaments surely can't be easy." Just about then, completely out of nowhere, Fluffy came rolling and tumbling from the top of Nadalada's stairs. Even Fluffy has a mind full of hoo-ha. 10,000 trifles up there. 10,000 shiny baubles to keep Fluffy chasing air.
Very good. It kind of reminds me in some ways of the Tao Te Ching, which is not a story, but just the succinctness and the phraseology.
Well, I mean, and I'm glad you caught that, because at one point before I decided I was going to write a children's book, I was attempting to translate the Tao Te Ching in haiku form. So
Mm. Oh,
just to play with words, because I'm familiar with the Tao Te Ching philosophy, and a lot of that, a lot the 10,000 baubles and 10,000 trifles I just mentioned in there. That's straight out of the Tao Te Ching.
yeah.
In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says that naming is the mother of the 10,000 things. So those are the 10,000 things: 10,000 baubles, 10,000 trifles, 10,000 shiny things dancing around our head to keep us from recognizing the truth of our existence.
Yeah, yeah. So, folks, this is ancient philosophy in a uniquely accessible form. And so I love the way that, Terry points out uh, children's story for children of all ages. There's some very simple philosophy here that goes very deep. And I keep coming back to the stereotype, Terry, because we know that stereotype is out there, and so it probably is surprising to folks a poet philosopher who's made a career selling cars, training other people to sell cars. But it's an artificial distinction to say, there's work and there's life. Well, business is life. Life is business. It's just not only business.
Well, I think the point of the book is pointing out that all distinctions are artificial.
Yeah, there
Period.
we go.
That's the story. That's the gist. If you want to boil it down to it, all distinctions are artificial. And another thing that I've spoken and trained on is personal branding, and that got to be a big buzzword a few years ago. Was personal branding, and one of the first things I started telling people about personal branding is there's not two yous. There's only you, and you got to be you all day long. Social media gives you a platform to be you louder. Social media gives you a lot more chance, a lot more opportunity to present you to a lot of people, but there's only one you. And if you're a different person online than you are offline, it's not going to work. If you're a different person at work than you are at home, then it's not going to work. And I tell salespeople every single day, the only possible way to be a better salesperson is by being a better person. All
Mhm.
distinctions are artificial.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent point. Well, when I asked in preparing for this, I said, "What's the next project?" And of course, the project that you pointed to is this project that you're actively working on, the Coalition for Human Kindness. So let's refine that a little bit and say, what is the next step in continuing to develop the Coalition for Human Kindness? What would you like to be happening next?
Well, I wrote the book. I had the Coalition for Human Kindness. It existed only in my mind and on the pages of LinkedIn, and I brought it into the world. Last year, I sat down and I wrote "Here Come the Nothing Heads." I wrote it over the course of the first of the year, and I got it published. And putting it together, I said, okay, well, this is when the Coalition for Human Kindness is going to debut to the world. So I listed it as the publisher of there, and it's on the back of there. Buy the book, it's on the back of there. I said, okay, so now I've got it. I've actually got to create this thing. So it exists. What happens is, it's a publishing company. I've got my books, Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us, How to Sell More Cars, and Here Come the Nothing Heads. And you can listen to and read those for free as a member of the Coalition for Human Kindness. And the thing I want to do is to grow that. So I'm going to take just a second. Don, I just see you. I can't tell who else is listening. So I'm going to talk to you. But if you're listening, you can actually play along, because my goal in life, my job as the all-around good dude for the foreseeable future, is to grow the Coalition for Human Kindness, to get more people involved in spreading this message of human kindness. And part of that is by reading and listening to the books that I've put out there, because I think that's how I can contribute to that. So Don, I'm going to make you an honorary member of the Coalition for Human Kindness right now, if you don't mind. But you got to take the oath. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah.
All right. I, Don King,
I, Don King,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to do my best to
to
be
do my
kinder,
best. Say it again.
to do my best to be kinder
To do my best to be kinder
to myself,
to myself,
to others,
to others,
and to the world around me.
and to the world around me.
Yabba dabba do.
Yabba dabba doo.
So as an honorary member of the Coalition for Human Kindness, you can now spread that message. You can inoculate other members in that kindness and spread that along. But if you join the official group, you go to bekindclub.org and become an official kindologist for $5 a month. $5 a month, you get access to all of the books. You can listen to the audio books, and you get a free bekindclub.org coffee mug, because much like butter and kindness, coffee makes everything better, Don. Coffee makes everything better. So you get the coffee free, and our tagline is free books, free mugs, free hugs. So you can listen to the books for free. You get a kindologist mug for free, and just for listeners of the Alignment Show, if you sign in today and you put Don King's name, you mentioned Don King anywhere, then I'm going to send you a free autographed copy of any one of my books, Better Self-Help for the Rest of Us, or Here Come the Nothing Heads, or even How to Sell More Cars if you want to sell more cars. But my goal for the group is to get more people involved in it, to get more people in it, to get more people listening to it, and then to keep contributing to it. I want to write another book in the hopefully in the Here Come the Nothing Heads vein. And ideally, if we get the ball rolling, I'd like to produce a video of Here Come the Nothing Heads, because I think it works as a children's story. Hopefully, I always say that I need it to work in 3 different ways for it to do what I want to do. And the first thing it needs to do is a children's story. So the frantic mother who doesn't have time to be kind to herself can put on the audiobook, or plug in the video, or sit down and read to her kids for 10 minutes, and maybe, just maybe, calm them down enough so that she can breathe. And that's about the kindest thing I think I could possibly do with any of this.
Excellent. Well, I always like to wind up with a favorite question, Terry. And the question is, there's usually something that you wish that I had asked about that I didn't think to do or forgot about or whatever. Is there a question that you wish that I had asked? And if so, what would your answer to that be?
So, if you're going to throw me a softball, I think the softball I'd like to hear is, dude, Terry, I listened to that book. I listened to it on Audible, or I went to the the Coalition for Human Kindness webpage. I listened to the audiobook. That audio version is really fantastic. Who read that? Who's the producer on that? And no, it's not me. When I wrote the book, I wrote it and got it out. And I originally wrote the book as a poem for children of all ages. And I thought it needed to be an illustrated children's book. And I'm not an illustrator. I'm a words guy. I can't draw, but I can put words together, hopefully in a pleasing order. And I put these words together, and I was thinking I needed to make an illustrated children's storybook out of this. And I approached a few artists and dabbled with a couple of things, and nothing was really buttering my biscuits. And it dawned on me, like I said, if you hit me enough time in the head with a 2x4, eventually I'll get the message. It dawned on me that this exists as a storybook. It's meant to be read. It's meant to be heard audibly. And I think that having those 2 people there to make that connection is part of the little mojo I want in the book. So I decided that I was going to make this into an audiobook first. It's an audiobook first. That's why it exists in nature. And I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, including the Tao Te Ching, including a lot of books by the Dalai Lama, and a couple of there's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk who
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah, I can never pronounce his name, so I wasn't even going to try. He wrote a book called The Art of Happiness, I believe. And many of those books that I listened to, the same voice kept popping in. And I go, dude, and even my wife, who doesn't listen to any of this and doesn't know anything about the Tao Te Ching, she stumbled in on me one day listening to The Art of Happiness. She goes, man, I really like that guy's voice. And I said, well, you're right. So when I decided the book was going to be an audio book first, I decided, well, who's this voice that I keep hearing? And I looked it up, and it's a gentleman by the name of Eduardo Ballerini. And Eduardo is one of the top audiobook narrators in the country. He's won a Lifetime Achievement Award for narrating audiobooks. And I'm not sure about today, but as of last week, the #1 audiobook in America, according to the New York Times, not some Amazon #1 list that the authors like to try it out. The New York Times, the real deal #1 best-selling audiobook in the country is John Grisham's The Exchange, which is sequel to The Firm, which he wrote 27 years ago. Eduardo Ballerini is the narrator of that, and he's also the narrator of Here Come the Nothing Heads. So
Wow.
it's a pretty, that's probably one of my proudest achievements is I talked this guy into reading my words and putting them out into the universe. I'm pretty excited about
Cool.
that.
Well, yeah, that's understandable, man. That is cool. That is cool. Terry, it's so good having you on the Alignment Show. I'm going to ask you to hang out in the green room for just a second so I can thank you properly. Want to wrap things up here because, respecting your time and the audience, all that sort of thing. But I just have to come back and say, I've known you for years. I'm just so impressed at how you have truly brought your life into alignment with your values. And that's what we're here for on this program. So, folks, Terry is living proof that you can think about these things and bring your life into alignment. Terry, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for everyone else for listening. Be kind, y'all.
Absolutely. I'll be back with you in just a second. So, folks, as we look towards what else is going on with the Alignment Show, it occurs to me, I love what Terry was saying about coffee, quite honestly. Those of you who've been following along with the publication of The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why, you may know that that's the first book in the Sparklight Chronicles. And every book has something to do with coffee. The second book in that series, I'm about a third of the way done on that. Coffee's involved. It's called Real Speak. I've jumped ahead. I'm about half through on what is technically the third book chronologically. It's called Medium Well. And so if you would like to follow along with that, be sure that you get in contact with us, The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why. We've talked about here before. Keep up with that. But coming up next week, we have Kim Curtis. Kim is a best-selling author who her story is that she went from the free lunch at her high school cafeteria to being a successful entrepreneur. More than just successful, she's considered among the world's foremost experts in building wealth consciousness. The best-selling author of a book entitled Money Secrets: Keys to Smart Investing and Retirement Secrets. And so we're going to talk with her not only about what we can learn about that consciousness, but also to learn how she made the leap. That's what we're always looking at here on the Alignment Show. In any case, we will be back next week. We'll still be on Wednesday next week. And so join us as you can. And got to get my technology lined up here. There we are. Remember to live your values and value your life. And we'll see you next week. That's it for this week's episode of The Alignment Show. What has it inspired you to do in your own life? Whatever it is, take action now and take the first step. It will help you to talk with a friend about what you're thinking. Share confidencecultivators.com to spread the goodness. And remember to live your values and value your life. We will see you next week on The Alignment Show.